Jagapuru Shila Prabhupada ki Ananta Guru Vaishnava ki Naman Charge Mahilas Thakur ki Prem Shivahu Shivashe Prabhu Nityananda Shri Shiva Sadi Guhu Bhakti Vritti ki Sri Radha Krishna Gopinath Shama Kunda Radha Ki Yordan ki Vrindavan ki Karanam ki Dwarkanam ki Navadidam ki Jumanamaya ki Gangamaya ki Tulsi Maharani ki Bhakti Dev ki Sambhava Bhakti Srila Prabhupada ki Jai Giridhari ki Shri Krishna Sankirtana Jaga ki Gopremanandi. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the divine lotus feet of Sri Sri Guru and Gauranga. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Krishna Sadamo Bhagate Damaganadi Bisaha Kalaundasa Dashamesha Parano Konadodita Narayana Namaskritcha Naram Chaivam Narotama Devim Sarasatim Vyasam Tato Jaya Mudirayat. The Bhagavatam, Mrs. Brinda's son, is originated just after the departure of Lord Krishna to his own abode, accompanied with knowledge, religion, etc. Persons who have lost the vision through the dense darkness of the age of Kali should get light out of this Purana. Before beginning our study of the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is a very means of conquest, we should first offer our respects to the personality of God in Narayan, to the Narayan Rishi, the supremest human being, the goddess of the Living Mother Saraswati, the author Srila Vyasadeva, and my spiritual master Srila Prabhupada. Who's nearby? Can you hand me this cushion? Do you mind? Oh, that was fast. Oh, to be young again. Thank you. So what we're... Balaram Prabhu covered a lot of ground yesterday. And rightly so. But I wanted to do two things today. I wanted to go back to one verse with a very short purport. And then I also wanted to talk about a little more support for the fact that the Bhagavatam is historical record and not allegory and flights of fancy. Because we covered a lot of this person came from there and this came from that, and it stretches the credibility of the listener. So what is that about? So that's what we're going to talk about today. So we're on, and also I kind of wanted to leave the verse 30, which is Balaram left on 29. I wanted to leave that for Giriraj Maharaj. And you'll see when you see the verse 30. And you think he gives class tomorrow? Well, we'll see what's up about it. Okay. Krimi vid bashma samgyasid. Now, we're going to break this up. I'm looking at the word for it. Yasya, yasye, sabihitasya, cha, bhuta, druk, tat, krite, svartam, kim, veda, nidayo, yata, krimivid bhasma samgyasid, yesha bihitasya cha, Bhuttadruk tat krite svartam. Kim Veda nirayo yataha. Krimi vid bhashmasam gyasid. Yasyesa bihitasya cha. Buddha-druk tat krite svartam. Kim Veda nirayo yataha. Krimi vid bhashmasam gyasid. Ishesa bihitasya cha. Buddha-druk tat krite svartam. Kim Veda nirayo yataha. Vaishnavis. Yashesa bihitasya cha. Buddha-druk tat krite svartam. Kim Veda nirayo yataha. Krimi vid bhasma sandhyasa. Yashesa bihitasya cha. Bhuttadruk tat krite svartam. Kim Veda nirayo yataha. Krimi, worms. Vit, stool. Bhasma, ashes. Samgya, name. Asit, becomes. Yasya, of which body? Isha bihitasya, although designated as king. Cha, also. Bhuttadruk, he who harms others. Tat krite, for the sake of that. Svartam, his self-interest. Kim Veda, does he know? Niraya, punishment in hell. Yataha, from which? Translation. When dead, the bodies of all the rulers known as kings and great leaders will be transformed into worms, stool, or ashes. If one enviously kills others for the protection of such a body, does he actually know the true interest of life? Certainly he does not, for if one is envious of other entities, he surely goes to hell. Oh, we do have a clock, courtesy of Brishma. Purport, short. The body, the material body, even if possessed by a great king, is ultimately transformed into stool, worms, and ashes. When one is too attached to the bodily conception of life, he is certainly not very intelligent. Omagana temarundasya gyanagana salakaya jakshushu militan gena tazade shi gurave namaha. I looked up envy, because Prabhupada uses this word a lot. And sometimes it seems, well, it's not really envy. You know, envy means to aspire after what somebody else has. So if you look at the Old English translation from Oxford English Dictionary, here's the root of the word envy. And this is the context Prabhupada uses it when you read the word envy. So Oxford English,
that oracle of truth. It describes envy in the Old English translation is hostility or enmity, to regard maliciously, active hostility and opposition. So when you see Prabhupada using the word envy, I'll read it again. He means it in this context. Hostility, enmity, regard maliciously, active hostility, and opposition. So as we've mentioned before, there will always be three stations in life, three tiers, we could say. There'll be people less fortunate than us. There'll be people on the same par or same level as us. And there will be people that are more fortunate than us, more wealthy, more intelligent. There'll always be this strata. So how do we deal with that? The materialist, if there's someone less fortunate, less strong, less whatever it is, what do? They exploit them like crazy. Take advantage, push down, look down, criticize, condescend. Okay. Someone who's on the same level, other than Tyler, what do? They compete. They try. I was watching some kids the other day out my window, and they were playing King of the Hill. They had I think from Burger King, they had this cardboard crown, and they're doing some construction, so there was a little dirt hill. Anyone know the basic principle of the game? Of course, everybody's on a computer game now. So, what, Joe? What is the principle of King of the Hill? Oh, you get to the top of the hill, then what happens when you're on the top of the hill? Everybody wants to knock you down. That's the name of the game. You get up there, it's a struggle, you get up on the top, and then knock you down. Simple kids' game. Malicious and cruel. As kids can be sometimes. So that's that scrum for who's on top and how to push down, and that's someone on the same level. Now someone who's on a more fortunate level, she needs to get past you. If someone's on a more fortunate level, how do they, stronger, brighter, more powerful, more opulent? How does the person in the lower position, materialist, how do they see them? They're envious in the real sense, in the other sense. Well, why him and why not me? And one of the things, what is it, Schadenfreude? Where's Dravida when you need him? He's giving a Zoom class, actually, and then finishing his rounds. So what is it? It's not enough to succeed. The full material flavor of competition and envy, it's not enough that you just succeed and come on par with that person. What's the other thing that really makes it sweet for the materialist? Who said that? You have to see the other person fail. You have to be able to drive by in your brand new Rolls Royce and splash mud on them when they're out there trying to, with a tin cup trying to sell pencils or whatever. Then it's relishable. So now how does a Vaishnav see those? How do they see someone less fortunate? How the devotees, when they go out on book distribution or Harinam or whatever it is, what do they think? Why are they out there? Huh? Compassion. Somebody else say, who over here? For mercy. They're thinking, oh, these people, they don't know about, think about it. They have, the devotees, we often go, when they take a photo or something, or Hare Krishna, and it's just that gesture, you feel some happiness, you feel some relief, get the burden of the world off you. They never feel that. They never feel that, well, you know what? And I've mentioned it, and I'll mention it again. At the LA Ratha Yatra, 2 large land whales, 2 men, they were big size. They were supersized. And they were listening, to their credit, they were listening to the a question and answer booth, Jayadvaita Maharaj. I wanted to hear Jayadvaita Maharaj. I had a few minutes from the free prasadam booth at the LA Ratha Yatra. And he says, the first step, the basic foundational understanding of spiritual life is we are not this body. And one of the large men turned to his friend and said, well, that's certainly a relief. And to get that off your back, all your life you've been told you got slanted eyes or a small head or big ears. I mean, whatever it is. People can be cruel, especially kids. Kids can really zero in on whatever your idiosyncrasy or whatever your, Achilles heel is and just drill it. So, okay, but a Vaishnav, he feels merciful. He said, let me help this poor person. Because there, but by the grace of God go I. Some Vaishnavas save me. Let me be merciful to them. Okay. And leave it open, fresh. There's always something. Thank you, though. And someone who's on the same level, what does a Vaishnav do? And the materialists are competing and trying to push down and knock off the hill. What's a devotee do? They make friends. They open up their heart. You reveal your mind in confidence. They reveal their mind. You offer some gift. They offer some gift. Exchanges of the heart. It's very sweet. I mean, it's just, Prabhupada said, when we say Prabhu, Prabhupada said, Prabhu doesn't mean come shine my shoes. Prabhu means, oh, my dear Prabhu, how can I serve you? How can I? It's such a nice ethos. It's such a nice mood. And someone who's superior, materialists are envious. And, what do you mean? But how does a Vaishnava see someone superior? They respect. And what else? Serve, okay. Respect, serve. Yeah, who said that? Yeah, man. They ask questions. They inquire and get transcendental information and solace and relief. So, once again, Prabhupada said, we're sitting on a fence. We can lean one way or the other. So we have that choice. What kind of world do we want to live in? Where we're, pushing down and exploiting and competing and envious, or a world where we're, giving mercy, having compassion, and got nice friendships, nice warmth, and taking advice and serving seniors. So that's when Prabhupada's talking about someone is envious. Now, what I was thinking, when you go into the Vatican Museum, because we're talking about this ashes, stool, and worms, what is this? I mean, if you think about it, there's a story. People send me things that I'm very grateful for. Whoever you are out there, thank you. There was a young man, let's say in his 20s, and typical foolish, lusty young man, and he was a courier working as a, taking in this one big building. He'd go to the inner office. They, take this to the 5th floor, take this to the 7th, take this down to the law library, and he'd ride the elevator up and down. Now, what was his motivation for riding the elevator up? I mean, paycheck, of course, but they were all the pretty secretaries and all the pretty ladies, doing whatever they're doing, going up and down the elevator. So it was his chance to flirt and look at them. This is way off the track, but we'll get back. There was a large condo in Miami, and the faster those elevators move, the more it costs. If you want to move fast, you got to pay more in electricity, and it takes more power. So the owner of the building was super cheap, and therefore the elevators moved slowly. And people were complaining, it's like, what? Speed the thing up. He was flooded with complaints. And then he made one change, and everyone thought, and it was not speed up the elevator. And everyone thought, oh, this is fantastic. Thank you for speeding up the elevators. What did he do? I think Ram knows. What did he do? He put mirrors in. And everybody spent their whole time, they didn't even notice. They're moving at jet speed. It was the exact same speed, but because they were distracted, they didn't experience it. So this guy was, checking out the girls and this and that. He was having a great time. The elevator broke at the 14th floor, and he was stuck with big elevator, stuck with about a dozen people. and they were stuck for 18 hours. Now, I don't want to get too scatological or graphic, but stuck for 18 hours, the veneer of, the mascara runs, the guy sweats. You can imagine various bodily functions are greater forces than in the call of nature. Oh, it was hellish. You leave this body alone. I was counting the other day. You got to brush your teeth. You got to evacuate when you get up in the morning. You got to shave your face. You got to take a shower at least. Have I forgotten anything else? Anyway, you can add them up. I mean, they put cologne on. They do so many different things. So let's say the average man, somebody sent me the number. The average man will spend about six different steps just to make the body presentable. And ladies, it's the same story, if not more. They're burdened with putting on makeup. And just before you can present this bag, two bags meet each other. And they've had to prep. And they better not stay together too long, because it's going to get noxious and nasty. So what do we say? And where does it all end? We work so hard and we're in such anxiety trying to maintain the thing. And I was talking to a devotee. I'm not anti-health, don't get me wrong. But he lives practically on kale. And he said, and we were giving him a hard time, joking, because we're friends. And he said, nah, you're making fun of me, Swami, but I'm going to live 10 years longer than you. I said, yeah, and you're going to have to eat that for another 10 years. Better to, take simple prasadam and die early. I'd rather die young and, die eating than live on kale. That's like reserved for a hellish planet. So we're way off. But Vaisheshika Prabhu, somebody said, do you like kale? He said, yeah. You strip all the veins out of it. You take the soft parts that are left. You dip it in olive oil, and you bake it in the oven, and you put nice spices on it. So it's a kale chip. He said, then, I like it. When you completely disguise it from being kale, then it becomes actually tasty. But the point is that so much work to maintain this body, and people have all kinds of complexes and anxieties, and what's the result? It becomes ashes, stool, or worms. So the thing is, Prabhupada said, so I was going to say about the Vatican, when you walk in the Vatican Museum, first thing you see is a skull smiling at you. It's pretty eerie. It's got a big grin. It's got the teeth. And you know what the caption is? It says, how does it go? You are what I once was. I am what you will become. Think about that. You're looking at a skull. Everyone's, they got their camera and their shorts, and I am a happy tourist. Wham! You are what I once was. I was laughing and smiling, and I looked cute in my brand new suit. But what am I now? I am what you once were. You will become what I am now. So it's sobering, and it's meant to sober us. It matters. Prabhupada said, one of the first things I heard Prabhupada say, suppose you go to someone's house, and you see that they've, you knock on the door, ding dong, door opens, and you see they've arrayed before you on a table is a fantastic feast. And let's suppose you have a digestion, because that helps. So with good digestion and just stop for a moment. And you don't have to confess to who's ever sitting next to you, but think of all the favorite things you like to eat. Krishna prasadam. I'm thinking of hot jalebis, frankly. So all laid out there, everything you could possibly want. But you know that behind the door, this is Prabhupada's analogy, is a man with a club who's going to beat you silly after your meal. Do you walk in? They go, oh, well, at least I got a good meal out of it. No way. So frankly, when you strip it from all of its glitter and gloss, this material world, how does it all end up? So that's what it's trying to sober us up. Now, I wanted to cover a couple things else. So, reading this chapter, what? I mean, Aditi giving birth to 49, one child who Indra goes in the womb and chops her up and chops the embryo up into 49 pieces. They all come out and become devas. And one lady giving birth to the species of birds and somebody of, what? Sounds pretty amazing. I mean, let's, be honest. But the fact of the matter is, who are we and what do we know? Hridai Nandamarsh uses the example of Christopher Columbus' ant, and I've used it before. What does the ant know? The ant's been sent out by the queen of the colony. He's climbing up, exploring new worlds, see what's out there for the queen. You know how the Balboa, when he crossed the isthmus and discovered the so-called, this guy was there before him, it was there after he was long gone, but he took the Spanish flag and he touched the Pacific Ocean. And he said, all lands touched by this water now belong to Spain. And that must have been a real surprise to the Chinese. What? All se habla español? I don't think so, So, but the arrogance, imagine the arrogance of that. Hawaiian Islands, I don't know, where do you want to go? Philippines, all of a sudden, they bow down to the queen. No, it's ridiculous. So Christopher Columbus up, ant, exploring new realms, and climbs up, and he reports back. Great lands, mountains, forests, lakes, all uninhabited. What's wrong with his analysis? All uninhabited? Joseph. It wasn't inhabited. How? He didn't see any other ants. How was it inhabited? He was climbing on me. I'm a person. Has no idea that I'm a person. Because what does it see? Dogs, the way they're built anatomically, they don't look over 45 degrees. They don't ever. You never see a bird, a dog. Hey, well, what's up there? What's happening up there? They have a narrow spectrum of what. So, we can't see what's happening on the other side of this wall. We can't. Prabhupada, I was listening to a tape, and Prabhupada's talking. It's an interview by the L.A. Times, 1968 in Los Angeles. L.A. Times, of course. And he's asking about the moonshot. And it's because, didn't the Indians just went to the moon? And the Russians have been there. The Russians crashed, but they're going to try it again. And the Americans say, hey, been there, done that, we're going to Mars, Remind me later on to tell you about the Polish space program and where they're going. They're going to the sun. People say, you'll burn up. They say, you think we're dummies? We're going at night. So, everybody's trying to go somewhere, right? They're trying to do something. But Prabhupada says, if I can go out on the ocean, I'm in the ocean. I can be in the middle of the ocean. But I'm just skimming along the surface in my boat. If I say no whales, no sharks, uninhabited, well, you have to enter into it. You have to get the right kind of suit. You get a big dive. It's amazing. What is it? Is it 7/10? Well, I forget what it. 5/10. What is it? There's 5/7. I forget what it is. Of the world is covered with water. There's all kinds of amazing stuff going on down there. What to speak of Timingal fish, which Prabhupada said can swallow a whale like a small nut. So there's all kinds of things going on down there. Of course, there's even Varuna, Dave, and his whole kingdom. So unless you have the right body to enter into that medium, you have no idea what's happening. Just like the ant has no idea what's happening. Or a very simple example, if I were to whip out my phone here while the speaker, Badrinarayan Swami, is droning on, hey, I could be watching a movie, just have earphones. I could be shopping on Amazon. I could see what's happening in the sports. All of that is flying through this room right now. Anybody hear it? Anybody see it? No. But is it there? If you have the right device, you can immediately access it. We had a, Ram was here, we had this amplifier before Papa Mana fixed it or replaced it, was askew. And when the police cars would go by, it'd pick up the police signals. You know, car 54, what? But all that is in this room right now. But we don't see it, we don't experience it. You have to have the right device. So, and they talk about levels of security clearance levels on different computer systems. So we are insignificant. I remember there's this whole thing of, everybody gets a gold star, everybody's a hero, they can't, no microaggressions, everybody, So one of the capitals of that thinking is Boulder, Colorado, University of Colorado at Boulder. And I was giving a class, and you could just, everybody's, well, I think, and I've got my feeling, and Bhagavad Gita says that, but I think, and just for fun, I don't advocate you do this regularly, I said, you know what? What you and I and everybody in this room think is completely irrelevant. It does not matter. Oh, they were shocked that whatever came out of their mouth wasn't accepted as a pearl of wisdom. Everybody's got their own truth. No, you don't. There's an absolute truth. And you've got different levels of delusion about what the truth is. That's the reality. Oh, they were shocked. They were, you could just see. That's a microaggression, Somebody said, I said, it's not micro, it's macro. It's called birth, death, disease, and old age, and you're going to get crushed by it. It was a long pause after. We recouped afterwards. But so in Kali Yuga, everyone is so arrogant and puffed up. The statement of the Renaissance age, man, of course they mean people, but man is the measure of all things. What? How are we the measure of all things? We're like a little tiny Christopher Columbus in the universe. So the first thing is, who are we and what can we be? Honest. Prabhupada's a tendency to cheat, tendency to be illusioned, tendency to make mistakes. What's the other thing? What am I forgetting? Imperfect senses. I mean, we are crippled from the get-go. Well, I think, So that we don't see these things, we don't have the access level. The truth is, we are in, like if you're in a maximum security prison, they let you out for 23 hours. Because if they, they keep you locked up for 23 hours and 1 hour you get to exercise in the yard. And they've got, triple security. Because if you get out, you're just going to start trouble. Generally speaking, everybody in a prison says they're innocent, but let's assume that the majority of them deserve to be in there. And those guys in those max, security, you let them out, first thing they're going to do is steal a car, rape the driver, and go rob a bank. Don't let them out. So frankly, that's us. We're the bottom of the barrel, and you're all great saints who took birth to deliver these people. But the general population is just, and so were we till we met the Vaishnavas, they're just locked down. We are in a small corner of the universe. We're not given access off this planet, because if we do, we're just going to cause trouble. Even now, we foul this place. Even a bird doesn't foul its own nest. They've got, they say, dim, what do you call it? Bird brain. Birds are smarter than us. We're fouling the whole thing up. Our own planet where we live. Nobody in a right mind does that. Anybody have, before there was indoor plumbing, there was an outhouse? Was it an in-house? Did you just drop your load in the living room? Nobody does that. What? I'm sorry to be graphic, but that's what we're doing. It's just, and therefore the demigods have locked us down in a tiny corner and don't get out. Well, I think, we never went to the moon, and how can there be all these people? Who cares what you think? So I wanted to read, just for fun. These are excerpts from some of Prabhupada's purports. It's only a sample of the denizens on the 14 planetary systems. The universe is divided into 14 regions. Earthly region, wherein human beings dwell, is called Buraloka. Above this is Bhuvaloka, where entities who are Antarikshasthana, denizens of outer space, and Madhyamasthana, denizens of planets between earth and heaven, dwell. Included in these are Yakshas, chief of whom is Kuvera, the treasure of the demigods. Kinnaras and Kimpurushas, that's another category of entity, whose looks combine humans and animals, human and animal features, and probably gives the example of Garuda and Hanuman. Vidyadharas, angelic beings who fly in the sky without vehicles. Gandharvas, celestial musicians who subtly inspire earthly musicians. I heard my muse. Well, those are Gandharvas. Apsaras, lovely dancing girls who consort with the Gandharvas and other handsome residents of heaven. Charanas and Siddhas, who are naturally endowed with all mystic power. Ghosts, pretas, Pishja, there's a whole list, and many other kinds of supernatural entities. Well, within 20 minutes of searching the Bhagavatam, that's who's out there. Well, I don't see them. And then they say, well, you guys, the Hinduism, you worship many gods. They completely misunderstand. Here's an interesting feature. The Christians, say, well, we believe in one God and you believe in many gods, and they mean small g, right? Like Greek mythology. But it turns out, sure, there's one God, but in the Bible, you have angels, cherubs, seraphims, archangels. There's different thrones, sometimes 7 types. There's 9 general categories, 7 different types of. This is Catholic theology. All different types of angels with different levels and different powers, different duties. There's one sphere, there's a second sphere, there's a third sphere. There's also subsets called choirs of angels. So anybody who actually understands the universe understands that it's populated and it's managed, and there's all kinds of levels and creatures. This is just common sense. So I wanted to say one last thing, because we're running out of time. Just for fun, and Balaram said it yesterday, and Prabhupada says it, that the Bhagavatam is full. It speaks on every topic, so many different topics. And Srila Bhakti said that there, in the 7 wonders of the ancient world, one of them was the library at Alexandria. And it was said to have all the books of knowledge in the world. It was a collection that took who knows how many hundreds of years to collect. And one day, so they say, it caught on fire. It was all burned. The Library of, which is considered like we have the Library of Congress, it has everything in it, You can even go online at a small fee and download the Manu Samhita and do a word search on anything you want. So it's the Library of Congress. So Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur says that if all the books and knowledge were lost, we're not book burners, don't send me the emails, but if somehow or other, all the books of knowledge in the world were lost, and Bhagavatam remained, nothing would be lost. And because Balaram pointed out that what was it? It was talking about psychology between husband and wife and how you work it. There's another place Prabhupada talks about how the devotee deals with relatives, because relatives are always giving advice. Anyone who's married and had in-laws, they're always picking at your life. You should do this, you should do that, why don't you do that? They're always full of advice. Their lives are a mess, but they have no problem giving you advice. And Prabhupada says in one of his purports, the secret is that the young householder says, yes, yes, very good, I'll get right on that, and then ignores it completely. So you're polite, I'll take that on board, but you have absolutely no intention of ever doing it. And it's a way, you can maintain a little social harmony. So, there's so many things. Prabhupada says if a businessman says to you, oh, for you I make no profit. Prabhupada said if he wasn't making profit, he'd be out of business. He has to be making profit out of you. So it's just, it's a white lie, as we say. And those are just a few I thought off the top of my head. If you read through Bhagavatam, how to be a gentle woman or gentle lady, how to not be cheated, so many different things. So it's all human behavior, human nature, how to interact. It's all in the Bhagavatam. So I wanted to mention that. I'm going to end with one last thing. There's more, but we're out of time. I guess I'll just finish with this because it's fun. And because Giriraj Maharaj will be speaking tonight. Balaram was talking about how this word demon sounds pretty pretty heavy, call someone a demon. It's a juxtaposition of there's Sura and Asura. Sura means clean. Sura means of divine qualities, heavenly qualities. And in English, like so many other languages, in Sanskrit, like so many other languages, you put an A in front of it and it becomes the opposite of it, There's thesis and antithesis. You put anti or you put A in front of it, and it becomes the opposite. So you've got suras who are in harmony with the laws of God and the laws of the universe. Hitler took the Vedic swastika, tilted it, and flipped it over backwards. Says, yes, but it goes my way, basically. That's the epitome of demoniac thinking. So just for fun, because Giriraj Maharaj gives a class on this, and he describes, how there's devilish people in this world. We're surrounded by them. I don't want to go political, but so let's step into Juhu, the Juhu world. So I wanted to end with a brief, if I've got it. This is, Mr. Nair, who caused the devotees so much grief. Prabhupada tried to cheat Prabhupada. It's a whole, that's in that wonderful book by Giriraj Maharaj. But he was not alone. Mr. Nair was the ringleader of the thing, but he had his, like you have Kamsa sends all of his assistant, asuras. So I wanted to read just a few paragraphs on each of them. Mr. Nair, Prabhupada said, everyone's going back to Godhead. It's on a tape. He said, it's in Australia. You may have said it elsewhere. He said, everyone's going back to Godhead eventually, except for Mr. Nair. And even Mr. Nair will eventually go. But so Mr. Nair, because we already know about him, he had a sudden fatal heart attack, just dropped dead. And they were for no medical reason. They could just, enough, The devotees in Juhu passed out sweets to all the people coming when he passed away. Because he actually organized to attack the deities, and they had a small tent, with a corrugated metal lid on poles, and he hired a municipal construction crew, and they were sawing through the support of the thing. They ripped off the lid and off the roof, and the deities were in a small, like a little wood house, and they were actually at the point of being able to smash the deities inside the house. They were being stalled because the ladies, the men, I don't know what they were doing, but the Vaishnav ladies threw themselves in front of the deities. So you're going to have to bulldoze me first. So that stalled them. It's a whole story. But so Mr. Nair, he was the one who coordinated so many different things. But he had another guy, and one of his sisters, Mr. Rani. And Mr. Rani lived in an old frame house right across from Hare Krishna land, just opposite the site of the small temple at the time. He had a lot of people of Juhu in the palm of his hand because Juhu was really just a small fishing village then. Just a little while before Srila Prabhupada got Hare Krishna land, some big hotels were being built there because of the beauty of Juhu Beach. Otherwise, Juhu was a fisherman's village. Even today, when the wind blows the right way in Juhu, there's a bad smell from drying fish, rotting dry fish. But Mr. Rani had some money and some intelligence, and he had a large frame mansion that looked like a haunted house. And he used to conduct seances there in his yard. We would pass the area on the way to the Juhu Beach. He had a number of stone chairs and an altar in his garden. We don't know what went on there, but sometimes at night they would meet there and light candles. And once in a while he would have some sort of special event and a line of cars would form in front of his house. In India at that time, one had to be rich to be able to own a car. So even affluent people were coming to him. But he was basically playing on their ignorance, and he didn't like us because we were spreading knowledge, while he was thriving on people's ignorance. When the crew came to dismantle the simple temple structure, Mr. Rani was watching and laughing, especially when they brought the blowtorches to cut through the metal structure. So Gandiva's mother, one of the devotees, cursed Mr. Rani. Just as you're laughing when Krishna's temple is being burned, so one day you will be burned. The curse of a chaste lady like Gandhari. One morning, just at the time of Mangalartik, a few weeks later, we heard shrieks coming from the haunted house across the street. Then we saw an ambulance drive up. Eventually, we got the news that Mr. Rani had covered his body with kerosene and set himself on fire, and he died before the ambulance reached the home. Remember the curse, you're going to burn, just as, later on, I heard that when a black magician sends a ghost to attack another person and the ghost fails in his mission, the ghost returns to attack and torment the one who sent him. Yeah, if you're a mystic tantric yoga and you send someone to haunt somebody and that person can repel them. If we ever get Guru Prasad Maharaj here, he's GBC for many parts in South America. He's got ghost stories that'll blow your socks off. So some other day we'll tell some ghost stories from. Okay, here's another guy. So Mr. Nair down, Mr. Rani down. This is Mr. Tempe. Okay, we're going to get to this last guy. His name is Mr. Matre. He's the last one to go. But he was very political, very clever, Mr. Matre. Later, in 1978, he had the idea that he could take advantage of some trouble that we were having to then instigate the life members to revolt against us and take control of the temple. So he made an alliance with Mr. V.K. Tempe, who was a member of the Legislative Assembly, like Congress. So Mr. Matre came up with an idea that Mr. Tempe, who himself had joined ISKCON as a life member many, many years earlier, could organize the life members to try to take control of the legal society and thus take control of the temple. Thus, at a big meeting of ISKCON life members, Mr. Tempe spoke passionately, as politicians do, to say we were not qualified to run the temple and that the temple should be taken over out of our hands and put in the hands of the life members. He passed out flyers, arranged big meetings, and at the big second meeting, they were going to vote to take over the temple. He was struck with a mysterious paralysis and could not attend the meeting. He remained paralyzed for 1 year. Krishna just froze him in place. Sometime thereafter, when Mr. Tempe was on a sidewalk in front of the state government building, for no clear medical reason, he collapsed on the pavement and died. So there are, asuric people who harass the Vaishnavas, and Krishna has a way of dealing with them. This is the last one. We'll end here. Mr. Matre. Around June of 1978, there was a riot on the steps of the Juhu temple, and Mr. Matre took advantage of the situation to mobilize public opinion against the devotees. He systematically went to the newspapers and bribed reporters to publish articles against us. Remember, he was working in cahoots with Mr. Nair, who wanted to get the land back. He sold it to Prabhupada, and it's a whole story. He'd done it several times, sold it, put in certain conditions, And they couldn't, because he knew government control, they couldn't get cement, they couldn't get steel to build whatever they were going to build. And he said, well, you're not using it, and there's clause 15 in a 40-page contract, therefore I can take it back. And he'd swallow their deposit money and take the land back, and he'd done it several times. And Prabhupada came along and thought, oh, this sadhu, he'll be easy pickings. But he didn't. Everybody, it's a whole story. You can ask Girish Maharaj about it, and it's in his book. But at one point, everybody gave up and left. Prabhupada said, you can all go. He said, you get me a chair. He said, you take whatever money we collected. Well, you can buy buses, travel all over India, preach and distribute books. But you get me a chair, and you put that chair on that property. And I'm going to sit in that chair, and I will not leave. Because he made a promise to Radha Ras Bihari. So the devotee, well, Prabhupada's not leaving, how can we leave, So, and it was all designed by this Mr. So here's one of his assistants. So we'll finish up with Mr. Matre. Let's see. He bribed the reporters, and they said that the devotees were murderers, smugglers, drug dealers, drug addicts, kidnappers, womanizers, CIA agents, spies, etc. I don't know what's left in that list. He even claimed in one major newspaper article that the spires, the shikars on top of the domes of the temple, were actually radio antennas used to receive and transmit CIA messages. The faith in Vedic culture had been so lost in India. They thought, and everybody wants to go to the West where the streets are lined with gold and everybody, that's what they were thinking. Why in the world would intelligent young men and women from the opulent West take up our Vedic culture? Who would want it? They were thinking. So they must be being bribed. It must be some government ploy, because who else would want to become a Vaishnava? That's how browbeaten they were as far as their confidence in their culture. Whatever it was, so many hundreds of years of occupation. Okay, so where was I? So under Mr. Matre's instigation, the police came to search the temple premises for the radio transmitters, contraband money, drugs, foreign currency, etc. The police went so far as to even search the deity rooms and pujari areas. Later on, Mr. Matre got his reaction. There was a municipal school right across the street from the temple, right next to Mr. Rani's property, where the haunted house and the seances were. Interesting neighborhood. Now it was revealed that Mr. Matre was having an affair with another woman, and also that to get appointed as a teacher in the school, one had to do sexual favors for Mr. Matre. Somehow Mr. Matre's wife found out and threw him out of the house. Also, he was a little tyrant, a little bully in Juhu, taking bribes from everyone. For the simplest thing, you'd have to pay him a bribe. Otherwise, you couldn't get any work done. Get your phone, get your electricity, get, whatever it was, Couldn't get it done unless you bribed him. And on the other hand, even if you were totally innocent and just minding your own business, he would harass you and create complaints against you and send you notices and this and that. Thus, just to avoid being harassed by him, people would pay him some bribe. So when the scandals were exposed, people's hatred for him and anger came to a peak. It all came out. One day, when I was in one of the offices of the Juhu temple, we heard sounds that there was like a procession on the Juhu road in front of the temple. So we went out to look, and we got the news that it was a protest march with hundreds of people against Mr. Matre, with banners, slogans, and pictures, with Matre garlanded with shoes. At least in India, the way to really disgrace or insult someone is to garland the person's picture with chappals or Indian shoes. It is considered the greatest insult to put a garland of shoes around someone. That was the procession. And then I remembered a verse from Bhagavad Gita quoted by Tamal Krishna Maharaj. For one who is honored, dishonor is worse than death. They actually hounded Mr. Matre so badly, he had to move out of town. So he lost everything. But there's a Armenian curse, don't die, suffer. So he didn't even get to die, he had to suffer. So we live in a complex and colorful universe. The words of the Bhagavatam are true, and we have a little narrow vision, like the ant saying, nobody else exists. Well, wake up. And we'll end there. Thank you for sitting so patiently. Hare Krishna. All glories to the Bhagavatam.